This is Ancestral Recall, and I'm your host, Eli Kaplan. Today, we're going to gaze into the abyss, and hope that the abyss is too busy reading TV Guide to gaze back. This is The Dark. Anyway, The Dark came out in 1994, after the secondary market had put Type 1 staples like Ancestral Recall and Black Lotus over $50 at the time. $50, wow. This was despite Wizards creating a banned and restricted list, which limited the utility of owning more than one Black Lotus or Ancestral Recall. Wizards was pretty wary of such raw power, and toned down the set's power level. Yeah, a lot of people didn't like The Dark when it came out, just like many people didn't like Mercadian Masks or Champions of Kamigawa when they came out, because those sets were dialed down from the deafening volume of brokenness that was the set before, such as Unlimited, or Arabian Nights, or Antiquities, or Legends. This precedent continued with Fallen Empires, an even worse set, although Fallen Empires had a host of other issues that we'll probably get into some other day. Like Arabian Nights and Antiquities, The Dark was sold in 8-card boosters. Not 15, 8. There were 6 commons and 2 uncommons per pack. The Dark was the first top-down set that was not real-world based, but rather focused on a theme. In this case, a very ugly mood. Dominaria was going to pot after the Brothers' War, and this set showed you the decline. This was not gothic horror per se, but it was designed to show the unpleasant, eviler sides of all the 5 colors. Innistrad did much better with blatant horror tropes, which made it much more resonant, but Innistrad also had many other good things going for it, such as being designed for limited play. The Dark didn't enjoy that. But, let's not just compare it to Innistrad, because The Dark certainly does stand on its own. The Dark was infamous for having lots of art from the most hated Magic artists at the time. No, not Rebecca Guay. I personally think Guay's awesome, but she wasn't the most reviled artist at the time. Okay, Stasis's Faye Jones? Nah. She only did that one card, though a metric crap ton of people, including myself, hated that card. The problem was the card, not the art. No, the most reviled artist at the time was Drew Tucker. Now, I know there are going to be people out there who will watch this who are formally trained in artistic interpretation and classification, and I'm going to use some terms to make myself look like an idiot to these people. Fair enough. But for those of us lay people, Tucker's art was grimy, abstract, and impressionistic. Also, most of his cards were pretty bad in terms of power. A lot of people said, ugh, look at those little black flecks he uses in his work. It just struck them the wrong way. I think if they had been Kirby dots, well, maybe things would have been different. But still, Kirby dots wouldn't have fit Tucker's work. Drew Tucker's art was incredibly moody and creepy, like in the case of Merc Dwellers. They were horrific because they were indistinct. Maybe if you look at them, they'd sprout fangs or spikes when they got close to you. And he had a ton of cards in this set. And I want to tell you, I am a fan of his, and I'm really happy Wizards brought him back to do some art in Time Spiral. Viscid Mirrors, incredibly cool looking, incredibly scary, kind of breaking the typical style format of Magic cards that we see today, which is very well established. And it doesn't work for the modern audience of Magic. They want to see exactly everything that happens on the cards. They want to see the sweat on the hero's brows. They want to see the frames of the goblins and how the physical features of the different races vary from world to world. The thing is, horror films, a lot of them work because you can't see the exact details of what's wrong. And that's the feel that I get from Drew Tucker's work. Anyway, that was another really commonly cited factor why people didn't like The Dark very much. So what cards are famous from this set? First, let's start with the 900-pound gorilla in the room, Maze of Ith. Totally broken. All it costs you is a land drop. It turns your opponent's 6-drop attacker into nothing special. Control just shouldn't get tools like that. Commander is the primary reason that this card is still worth $40 these days, but it's really good in any format that you can play it legally in. Blood Moon. This is a hoser I like. It keeps people honest. It's one of the few dark cards that are modern legal. And this used to wreck people in Extended. It still wrecks people in Modern today. The other famous card from this set that's modern legal is Ball Lightning. Ball Lightning was an absolute hit when the set came out, and so a lot of white mages started running pikemen. No, pikemen. 1W, 1/1, first strike, and banding. Of course, the problem with that is you were running pikemen, which is a really inefficient 2-drop. But it had first strike, so it kept you from taking 6 trample damage. By the way, I'm not explaining banding today. There are some things newer players shouldn't have to learn, and I'm going to say banding is one of the things you don't need to learn if you started playing Magic in the last 10 years. The set has 3 gold cards. Marsh Goblins and Scarwood Goblins are the first common gold cards to see print. And there's also the first enemy gold card ever seen print in this set, Dark Heart of the Woods, which has an amazing name. Back in the day, people used to sideboard Dark Heart against balance decks when the DCI let you play with 4 balances. Yuck, by the way. You guys can tell I don't like griefer cards, and balance is one of the worst griefer cards out there. The Fallen. Once it hits you, it never stops hitting you. Pretty scary. The art's pretty awesome too. There was a 2-card combo set in the set that lots of bad blue players ran. The first part was War Barge, which could possibly give one of your guys evasion, but if your opponent had a disenchant, you just got 2 for 1. I hate getting 2 for 1. But it was a serious strain on your mana. But wait, what if Island Walk was a bad thing? Check this guy out, Merfolk Assassin. This card had an awesome name, pretty good art, and it could kill any creature in play for 3 mana once you got the War Barge out. Never mind that there were only 2 cards at the time that had Island Walk on them. Now Blue had a way to kill creatures that wasn't Psionic Blast or a host of Prodigal Sorcerers, but still, I wouldn't recommend it. Okay, White got a lot of out-of-flavor cards. Fire and Brimstone, okay, this is in the set because it's symmetrical and it shows White being evil, I guess. Witch Hunter, it gets to poke your opponent, or you can get to pay 4 mana to bounce a creature. That doesn't seem very White to me, but it is in the flavor of a persecuting, over-regimented, overly religious society. Alright, now we're getting to my favorite card in the dark, Preacher. Yeah, if you have some kind of sack outlet, you can steal a guy every turn, eat it for some good kind of benefit, and do it again the next turn. While Quentin Hoover's art is awesome and evocative, every time I see this card I think of Jesse Custer from Garth Ennis's and Steve Dillon's comic book opus, Preacher. Go read Preacher. It's not for kids, but oh my god is it fun. I really hope that AMC does good with this series. They picked up the rights, they optioned it. I know that this card really should have been blue. Mechanically, it's all wrong, but it's still cool. And they even did a callback to this card with Time Spiral's Evangelize. God. Time Spiral is probably my favorite set, and Time Spiral block? Oh, Time Spiral block is my favorite block, but anyway, we'll get to that. Also, Jesse Custer, not a 1/1. Just saying. But then again, the card represents a typical Preacher, I guess. I do love some of the Dark's flavor text. Goblin Shrine reminds me of walking around West Philly and looking at the street. In the words of Norrin the Wary, I knew it weren't no ordinary pile of, you know, Leviathan. Thomas Hobbes' favorite card. This was the biggest creature of all time at that point. I hate pulling this guy in Momir Basic on Moto. You may say, this card is utterly unplayable. So what? Timmy's loved it. Flood. Not as efficient as Icy Manipulator, but you get to tap down the whole army. Uncle Istvan. He wants to make me call child services. Brothers of Fire. God, I hated Prodigal Sorcerer back in the day. There were lots of Prodigal Sorcerers out there, especially on the Microprose game from 1995. Brothers of Fire was a great way to take care of Prodigal Sorcerer. There are those who call him Tim? Yeah, we also have to talk about the ugly bastard children of the dark, the Clunkers. Let's start off with Squire, a 1-white, 1/2 with no abilities. This card was legendarily bad and was included on Time Spiral's time-shifted sheet because players hated this card. If you open the Squire, facepalm. I'll tell you now, lots of players complained and complained about this card. There were articles on Usenet and the Duelist about how to make Squire actually playable so that you could humiliate opponents by beating them with Squires. But it got reprinted in Time Spiral because so many people complained about it. That's what happens when you complain. Then we're going to talk about, oh god, probably the worst land ever printed, Sorrow's Path. Okay, one of the 6 worst lands ever printed. This card was very poorly templated And what it does essentially, you get to change the way 2 blocks happen when you attack. That all of the cost is 2 life, no mana, tapping this and dealing 2 damage to your team as well. Wizards later gave this card away to Magic Online players as a consolation prize for their defeating the community team in the Community Cup Challenge. I can't imagine why. Also, the most embarrassing card in Magic design is in this set. How about Dem Whippoorwills? It had a bad activated ability, and lots of people kept trying to attack with it because they thought it had flying. The art screams, "I am flying! I'm in the air!" The card text doesn't have it. Wizards never gave it the Rada, and people just glared at this card. There are so many ways a card can suck, and Whippoorwill has most of them. So, is the set a good set or a bad set? That's the key question we're going to try to answer today. When the Dark came out, well, it wasn't very well received. It didn't have any cool new keywords, it was terrible for limited, but in its defense, hey, this was just a bunch of new magical cards. It was the 4th set, and players were always excited to see new stuff. It set the precedent for Innistrad, to its credit. Innistrad is the best-selling Magic set of all time. The Dark has the fight mechanic in it. It gave Wizards some practical lessons, though it took Wizards some time to let those lessons sink in. It isn't Homelands level bad, and it had some cool concepts. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being Homelands and 10 being Ravnica, I give the Dark a 4, slightly below average. It would never see the light of day today, but Magic was a far less defined game at the time, and the audience's expectations weren't shaped by 10 or 20 years of precedent like today. I'm not saying you have to go to eBay and buy a bunch of sealed Dark boosters, but you should go take a look at this set, go to your local gaming store or online store, and order some singles and give the set a try. That's it for the Dark. Thanks for watching today. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe. You can like this video, leave a comment below. You can follow me on Twitter, add me as a friend on Facebook, and find me on Magic Online as Turbo Eli. This is Ancestral Recall signing off. Good games and good luck.